You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So King Charles III is here with Queen Consort Camilla. And they came hosted by President Trump and Melania. And it's a fascinating visit, being that it's the U.S.'s 250th year. In fact, the President Trump just spoke. They're doing a White House ceremony this morning. And then later, King Charles is going to be addressing Congress. And this is, I believe, the first royal visit since 2007. Although I thought that the Queen was here in the United States as well, but I'll have to look that up. In fact, President Trump said there was a tree planted in the White House by the Queen. But seeing that the King of England is here on the U.S. 250th birthday, pretty cool. And so they landed yesterday. They joined President Donald Trump and Melania Trump for tea. By the way, if you've never had tea, it's an experience. I didn't think I was going to like it because I'm not a big tea drinker, but they give you a lot of goodies. And there's little sandwiches and little desserts and cookies and things like that. And they're like the best tasting. So I can't wait to have my next tea. You know, I just don't drink the tea. That's, maybe a Long Island iced tea I'll have. But anyway, so they had tea, which was really, really nice. And then they toured the newly unveiled and expanded Beehive on the South Lawn. Very, very cool. Then there was a garden party at the British Embassy. And then what everybody is waiting for today is after the kind of pomp and circumstance and ceremony at the White House, King Charles, I'm sorry. See, I keep calling him Prince. King Charles is going to be, it's a tough habit to break. King Charles is going to be addressing Congress. The long-held alliance between the UK and the US is something that I think, makes both our countries very, very strong. President Trump, in his speech just a few minutes ago, had talked about how it was by the way, whoever wrote the speech today for President Trump, it was a fantastic speech. How we went from, being, enemies and fighting and our 250th anniversary spurned from, blood and sweat and tears to break away from the monarchy, how he was able to interweave how America still got their culture, their grit, their strength from centuries of England and monarchy. And he actually, found a really nice way to bridge the two. And how, American colonies were born because of the British coming here and colonizing and establishing America. So, America was born from England, and it's something we can't forget. But, we are celebrating our independence, 250 years of independence, and it's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. I was actually in the UK back in, I think it was 2017 or 2019, and it was on 4th of July. And, we were at a pub, and so I told a bunch of the British that I was around that, we kicked your ass on this day years ago. It didn't really go well. I don't think the British like that. But they were cool. They're like, Happy Independence Day to you. And I was like, yeah, baby. So it was I like the monarchy. I think it's really, really cool. And it's not because I saw The Crown. It's just, there's not a lot of history as we become more, AI and computers and all that. I mean, it's the old world is becoming non-recognizable. And when you see something like this, like a monarchy, that doesn't really get involved with politics. They don't. They stay out of it, which I think they should. They want to look neutral so they could support whoever is in parliament or be there as a supporting figure, what Labor, Tory, whoever gets elected. But the idea that, our king, the king who has a bloodline from King George to Elizabeth to Victoria, it it is mind-boggling. And to see some of the traditions, the respect, because you're looking at a lot of this, you're like, gosh, it's a lot of pomp and circumstance. There's a lot of, time being spent on posture and flags and music and bands and all that, but it brings back history. I just like that about it. That we have a connection to centuries ago as we have a king here visiting. It's very cool. I love it. So, Prince Charles, oh my gosh, King Charles, why do I do that? See, you can't teach an old woman new tricks. I've been calling him, I've just known him my whole life. So King Charles has been king now for a few years. God bless the queen who has passed. The king will meet with Trump in a closed door meeting in the Oval Office. It's not going to be live streamed. There's not going to be a news conference. There's not going to be jokes about Rosie O'Donnell or anything like that. And then I guess Melania Trump and Queen Camilla are going to lead a special or a separate educational event with students at the White House Tennis Pavilion. So that's pretty cool. And so, what is Charles going to say to Congress? Well, that's, all eyes are going to be on that. From what we understand, King Charles is being very well received by Speaker of the House Johnson, and there's going to be a lot of, I think, admiration for him to be able to come and speak. He's going to probably be very unifying in his message. He's going to probably be very flattering, and he's going to probably bring up goals of how we could work towards peace together. And I mean, again, he has his own image to, also protect, where, he is supposed to be there as a beacon of, of light and of support and strength. And but I don't think he's going to insult Trump. I don't think he's going to do that. I think they're good friends, and I think they get along, and I think it's a good visit. So we'll see what happens. After that, I think tomorrow they head to New York City. They're going to visit the 9/11 Memorial and the One World Trade Center, and then they're going to meet with families of the victims. And then I believe he is going to look at some of our environmental causes, visit Virginia, and then travel to Bermuda, part of the UK Commonwealth. So they got a busy trip. All eyes on that, but it's an exciting day. Very cool. 1877.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
Back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So to cut somebody off or to not cut somebody off, that is the question. And we are hearing that 2 in 5 Americans are kind of separated from family, loved ones. 60% of Gen Zs in this one survey reported cutting someone off. We're not talking driving. We're talking like out of their lives. And baby boomers, 1 in 5. So these are some pretty striking numbers. 2 in 5 Americans, nearly 2 in 5, 38% have said they've gone, quote unquote, no contact with a friend or family member in the past year. This survey was done by Talker Research for the therapy platform Talkspace, and they looked at 2,000 adults. And, being in that situation with my family as well, it's interesting. So I grew up in a family where they use the term broigus, where somebody would not talk to somebody for some stupid reason, and it would go on for years and decades. And I was a little hearing about this, going, well, that's ridiculous. Okay, we're all family. We all need to get along. We all need to, blood is thicker than water. And I was like, I'd never do that, never do that. And then, unfortunately, I have some dysfunctionality in our family, not my nuclear family with my husband and sons, but, with the extended family. And I was probably one of the last people in that family to say, you know what, I'm just going to take some time to myself. Your mean texts and yelling at me and blaming me and just, harassing me, every day. I'm just going to kind of take a little break. Love you. Taking a break. Just going to probably just, forget my number temporarily. And I got to tell you, it was like the best thing I ever did. And this is kind of hard as a doctor to say that because, there's safety in numbers. It takes a village. There's nobody else like family. But I got to tell you, it's different these days. Now, somebody could say, look, okay, well, what's changed in the last few decades? I mean, people have relied on families before. Obviously, somebody was a pain in the butt. Somebody was the ass grabber. Somebody was the, one who took advantage. One was the con. I mean, the families have always had this. But I think what's different now is you used to have buffers. Because when you did have the family of 20 or 30 or 40, when you did have somebody that acted out, you had buffers. The problem is now that it's such a diaspora and everybody's all spread out and separate, then, when you're dealing with a toxic family member, they're consuming you. Younger Americans, they say in this study, according to Fox News, were far more likely than older generations to report cutting someone off. The survey found that 60% of Gen Zs had gone no contact, compared to 50% of millennials, 38% of Gen X, and 20% of baby boomers. In fact, there's a psychotherapist based in Florida, John Poles, and he said he has seen more young adults have no contact with their parents. They say this generation appears to have a low tolerance for otherwise poor behavior from their parents. They're often conflict avoidant, which prevents them from trying to meaningfully work through with their issues with their parents. Yeah, it was true. Now, it's interesting because, when we grow up, most of us, we got, a good butt whooping. We got, we got beat. But we still stayed close to our parents, and because that was just what you had to do. You had to honor thy father and mother, but honor thy father and mother, for those of us who are religious, that can mean a variety of different things. Okay, one, don't hurt them, respect them. I mean, they gave birth to you with the help of God. That's how I look at it. But on the other end, it can mean, don't disrespect their name by doing bad things. You might not necessarily have to be close with them, but you honor them by not being a bad person. So there's a lot of wiggle room with that honor thy father and mother, because my, mom and dad used to, scream that at me going, I can't, I can't ever get, upset with them for what they did, honor them. And I was like, this is kind of getting harder and harder to do. So 36% of overall respondents said the top reason for severing ties with somebody was they felt disrespected. Nearly 30% said the relationship negatively affected their mental health or that the other person was too negative. And these cutoffs were long. Among those who said they went no contact in the past year, 59% said they are still not speaking to that person. Now, is it because nobody wants uncomfortable conversations? Is it that there's so much toxicity now, in the world that they want to limit any more than they can? And I don't want people to be separated from their family. I really think a lot of these discussions and a lot of these issues are BS. Well, this person said this to me. Now, in fact, it was really interesting. When I was dating my husband, one of his grandparents had snapped at him for unprovoked. And he was like, wow, we used to be close. Well, to heck with them. That was ridiculous. That was rude. And I go, no. They probably have dementia or starting to get dementia, or they're probably, that's what happens. Older people, grumpy old men, they start to lose their filter. It could be, a frontal lobe tumor from metastatic disease. I mean, just give it a little time. Sometimes that happens. And then, a good friend of mine's parent, her husband, when he was dying, had said that he hated her. And I don't think he did. I just think that was the cancer. And so, I understand, maybe because I'm a physician, that, things can be said, things can be done, and you don't mean it. And I have friends. I mean, we might say things or whatever, and it's like, look, we love you. We're family. This is how we, you made me grumpy. You frustrated the hell out of me. But I'm not going to hold it. Listen, we all make mistakes. I think what it relies on is how much do you love that person? How much do you want to be with that person? So, I mean, if you have a really close friend and and you'll be like, what, I'll overlook some of these little nuances or these little mistakes. But if it's somebody where I really don't like you, I'm forced to be with you because you're family. I don't like you. I don't, agree with how you do or treat people. A lot of the younger generations, I'm done. So, it's a shame. They say more than a third of respondents in the survey said they had blocked a friend or family member on social media in the past year. 30% they had removed a loved one from a group chat. Okay, well, group chats, that's a whole nother thing. Okay, group chats are annoying. I have probably maybe 30 different group chats with my family because somebody's not on one of them. Somebody's ticked off at somebody else. So I need to be able to talk to them, but don't put them on the group chat because I don't want them having my phone number. And these guys, everybody's going back and forth. And you're like, oh my gosh, guys, come on. And so I see how that could weigh on you. But, if you're alone, you don't need to be. If you do have a family member and you're like, look, we haven't talked and I don't know why, talk. I do that with my family, with some of the individuals who, just kind of went off and did their own thing. I was always the one that bridged until recently. I'm like, let them have their space because, I help bring them back to the family and then they get hurt again by the family. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is better for you to just, because, some of these family members are whack. I think I feel you. Go ahead and, do your thing. But, for me, I can always forgive. I forgive. It's so easy. I have no problem forgiving people. I'll never forget, though. And, when somebody tries to, screw me over, or hurt my kids or oh, no. It's my job to protect the family. And that's kind of what I'm going through now personally with the family is I need to protect my family because there's a family member that is just very, very toxic. And it's one of those things where you wish it didn't happen, because you're supposed to be there for that family member. But, how can you when that family member keeps pushing you away? And I don't understand that. I mean, I have a family. How do you be mean to somebody? How do you, unless it's just mental illness. But if the younger generation does not have brothers and sisters and cousins, and they're not having their own little micro village, it means society then has to help take care of them. And that's a problem. When I talk to young people asking, are you going to have children? They're like, oh, no, too expensive, or I can't see blood, or I don't want to go through child labor or whatever. Sometimes I ask them, God forbid you need somebody, who takes care of you later? Oh, I don't know. Obamacare? I don't know if I would be relying on Obamacare. And I'm not saying have kids just so you have somebody to take care of you, although I got to tell you, that was a very, very big, that was a very big incentive for me. But we're not having the kids, we're not having the cousins, we're not having the siblings close by, and we're really losing a lot of that support That's another reason why I think we also have mental illness. You got mental illness because some people force themselves to be with toxic people, friends and family, and then you have mental illness because people are alone and they really need friends and family. Well, hope that's not you. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
And we're back. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. Welcome back to the Dr. Dolly Show. So tick bite season is here. Ticks, mosquitoes. It's the time of year. And unfortunately, we're hearing that visits to emergency rooms are higher than normal. They are surging, according to CDC's tick bite tracker. They say in all regions except South Central United States, weekly rates of ER visits for tick bites are the highest for this time of year since 2017. According to the CDC, they say in advance of Lyme Disease Awareness Month in May, CDC is urging the public to take steps to protect themselves and their families from tick bites and the serious diseases they could cause, like Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, alpha-gal syndrome. And so, I teach you guys every year what to do, when there is a tick. We're going to talk about that. But why are ticks so dangerous? Well, one big issue that we like to avoid is Lyme disease. Lyme disease is a bacterial infection caused by Borrelia burgdorferi. I think I pronounced that correctly. I'm not a good pronunciator. And unfortunately, deer ticks, or the black-legged tick, they call them, are the culprit. You could, within the early symptoms of getting a tick bite, feel feverish, chills, headache, fatigue, joint aches, swollen lymph nodes. Many people are calling telemedicine like, oh yeah, I got strep. Well, yeah, strep could make you feel that way. Flu can, COVID, but we have to physicians ask, were you bit by a tick? So early symptoms can, range anywhere from a couple days after the tick bite to a month. The characteristic rash looks like a bullseye where you have a red ring with white and then a red center. It looks like a target, like target or a bullseye. It's called erythema migrans. We see it in about maybe 80% of the cases. And it could become a large one. And it's a sign that you were bit by a tick. It could be warm, could be itchy, could be painful. Where we get nervous, if Lyme disease isn't addressed and if it isn't treated right away, you could start getting meningitis, encephalitis, severe headaches, neck stiffness. You could start having cardiac manifestations from Lyme disease, heart palpitations, major arthritis, neurological issues. And so the deer tick, or the black-legged ticks that are the biggest culprit, they have to basically be attached for at least 36 hours. I still believe they could transmit it within 24 hours. However, you increase your chance of success and a better prognosis if you get that tick off you within a day. According to the CDC, most infections occur from juvenile nymphs in spring, summer, or adult ticks in the fall. So the babies are out, and the babies are going to want to feed. We don't want you to get Lyme disease, Lyme arthritis, neurological issues. If you are bit by a tick, usually we will give you doxycycline prophylaxis. So at the site of the tick, we want the tick removed. If you can't remove it, let us remove it. I know a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, light a match to the back." No. It's one swift movement. You want to grab it, kind of center of gravity, middle. Don't grab by the head. You got to try to get it in one full swing, because otherwise, if you break it in half, the head, which has the sucking mechanism, these ticks do a suck blow mechanism out of their mouth, where they I forget exactly the part they call that the ticks use, but they have to inject an anesthetic into you so you don't shoo it off. And so they blow that into you, and then they suck their feet. They feed off of you. But when they blow that anesthetic into you, that's when they could give you Lyme disease. So we could treat, luckily, with antibiotics such as doxycycline. If we're doing preventative dosing, you get just a one-shot dose, 200 milligrams as an adult, or I believe it's like 4.4 milligrams per kilogram for a kid. But if you have active Lyme disease, you're going to be treated longer. So, tick-borne illnesses are on the rise, and fleas, can also transmit, mosquitoes. We call them, vector-borne illnesses. And a Vital Signs report suggested that approximately 80% of vector control organizations lack critical prevention and control capacities. And so even though we know what we need to do, we just don't have enough resources. So it's going to be on you to avoid getting bit by a tick or bit by a mosquito. Mosquito can carry dengue, malaria, Zika, yellow fever. And they're hard to stop. It's a little easier to say, well, I'm going to stay away from a dog that could be rabid. With these ticks and mosquitoes, they get on you without, you knowing it. So try to avoid tick and mosquito infested areas. Now that's a little tricky because, I'm hiking, right now, everybody's kind of doing their thing. We want to get outdoors, we want to enjoy, but you're going to have to then protect yourself. Wear long, breathable shirts to protect arms during the summertime. Tuck pants into socks. I know that looks funny, but just do it. Nobody's going to make fun of you. Wear light colored clothing. See, ticks like to go near your scalp, near the skin. They don't want to be seen. So, and they want to, feed for hours. So if you're wearing, light colored pink, fluorescent yellow, blue, water shirts type of thing, that might, cause ticks to go, I'm going to go somewhere else. You should always do a tick patrol. When somebody comes into the, house after they've been outside in the woods or hiking or whatever, you want to look and you want to find them. And then examine them, even in the scalp. And then use an insect propellant. Insect propellant is, I think, very, very helpful. You might need to, do it in your, you might actually have to use a combination where you put it on your clothes, where you not only put it on your skin, but also you'll spray the clothes, because that can also help. Now, one thing that I always find fascinating is when we hear of famous people who might have had a disease. And we spoke about Darwin. Charles Darwin, they believe, might have had Lyme disease, known as the father of evolution. He was around, I guess he was born like in the early 1800s, died 1882. But from what we understand, he suffered miserably. He had severe headaches, heart palpitations, shortness of breath, abdominal pain, abdominal distension and gas. Charles Darwin suffered from vomiting, rash, joint pain, chronic fatigue, exhaustion, dizziness, tremors, mouth ulcers. He had poor resistance to infections, depression. Now, there's so many things this could be. And so people thought that maybe he had lupus, Chagas disease, inflammatory bowel disease. They thought maybe he was a hypochondriac, food intolerance, a poisoning of some sort. But in 2004, I believe, actually one researcher thought he had a gut infection, Chagas disease. But I believe this was back in 2019 researchers, Irwin Kompanji and Joe Rumer, said that they really think that it was Lyme disease. Darwin's work caused him to travel extensively, and study authors write, exposure to a tick carrying Borrelia in Great Britain is much more plausible than Chagas disease during his travel to South America. Now, could also be B12 deficiency, mercury poisoning, hyperthyroid, but they think that maybe he had more of Lyme disease. If they don't know exactly what he had, we've already had people call it Darwin disease. But it's fascinating. The symptoms, unfortunately, these symptoms overlap. I mean, there's so many things that could cause headaches and abdominal pain and shortness of breath. COVID. I doubt he had COVID at the time. So be careful with the ticks. Again, you don't want to grab a tick by a head when you remove it. You want to get it between the thorax and the abdomen and one swift pull. Don't be lighting it with a match. That's not appropriate. And then have clean with soap and water. Make sure somebody examines to make sure all the pieces are out. Get on doxycycline prophylaxis. A lot of telemedicine companies will do that for you. But then follow up with your medical provider to check for Lyme disease titers eventually to make sure you didn't get exposed. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Welcome back to the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So for any of you who used Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, you might be entitled to a settlement and some pretty decent money. Apparently there was a settlement arising from a class action antitrust lawsuit called Blue Cross Blue Shield Antitrust Litigation MDL 2406. There's a file on it, and apparently the settlement is establishing a $2.67 billion settlement fund. Plaintiffs allege that the defendants violated antitrust laws. This is according to the Blue Cross Blue Shield settlement website. They said that they violated antitrust laws by entering into an agreement not to compete with each other and to limit competition among themselves in selling health insurance and administrative services for health insurance. The defendants deny all allegations of wrongdoing and assert that their conduct results in lower healthcare costs and greater access to care for their customers. The court has not decided who's right or wrong, but defendants agreed to a settlement, and this helps them avoid, litigation and more cost as it pertains to that. So the settlement is establishing a $2.67 billion settlement fund. They say there's two settlement classes, a damages class and injunctive relief class. You had to have used, I guess, Blue Cross Blue Shield and had, I guess, filed a claim before November 5th, 2021. Now, I know that sounds confusing. That's not a claim for your, I don't believe that's for your settlement. All right. According to now the New York Post, they said Blue Cross Blue Shield is currently reviewing claims and sending notices to claimants via email and postcards on a rolling basis. If claimants receive an email or postcard from the insurance company, they need to follow the instructions included within to eventually receive their payout. The settlement covers customers who had Blue Cross Blue Shield plans between February 8th, 2008 and October 16th, 2020. It also includes providers enrolled in administrative service plans who served patients between July 24, 2008 and October 4th, 2024. Providers needed to submit claims by July 29th, 2025. As part of the settlement, Blue Cross Blue Shield has also vowed to change its business practices to increase opportunities for competition. So they promised that they would do a better job. Now, I mean, when I think back to, Blue Cross Blue Shield and how they paid out, and every insurance, gave me some drama. And so I don't recall Blue Cross Blue Shield being more difficult. But in terms of patients and their insurance rates, this is something that I guess has been a long time coming. And you also wonder if any other insurance companies are also going to be, shall we say, culpable with this. So apparently this has gone on since November 5th, 2021 in terms of the damages class. And you guys should, if you've had it, read the Blue Cross Blue Shield settlement.com. It's BCBS settlement.com. It could be a bunch of BS to some of you guys, but this has gone on for a few years. But finally, the deadline has passed for there to be any more appeals. I think that's all done. Settlement is ready to go. Money's supposed to come out. Okay, so if you guys benefit from that, that's wonderful. But what this to me shows, and this is very, very frustrating to me, but that the 2013 antitrust lawsuit says that Blue Cross Blue Shield made backdoor deals not to compete with each other and to limit competition. These insurance companies are very powerful. And I mean, I am grateful for them covering patients and helping them through their cancer and heart disease. But on the other end, they have been such a thorn in my side, a thorn and they have been so, I mean, when I think of a big corporation, I mean, these guys are a big corporation on steroids. And to be able to get through, to be able to get the patients what they need, to be able to address the high rates and the plan. We haven't had choices. This is the problem we have with our current healthcare system. We don't have enough choices, or the choices all seem to be the same. I'm seeing that with airlines also. Now I need to make a flight, so I go and I look what Southwest charges, what United charges, American, and they're all within a few bucks from each other. Really? And I know what's happening. They don't want somebody being, undercutting, and then them being, they want to work together, and they want to feed off each other's customers. But that's antitrust. You can't do that. And when it pertains to our health insurance, this is, hopefully, this is something that you guys could benefit from. Another thing that I've seen is just the evolution of what was good insurance and what was bad. One of my listeners 2 weeks ago asked me to do a segment on, which health insurances are the best. And that's very difficult to do because what was once the best now isn't as good. And so if we had to rate what a good insurance company is one is where their premiums aren't ridiculously sky high. Two is where their deductible isn't ridiculous, where they'll only start paying your claims after you hit a deductible, whether it's $5,000, $10,000. To me, I don't care who the insurer is, a high deductible plan is already a deal breaker for me. But three, where you can understand what they're going to cover and none of this fine line. So like, for example, now that Obamacare is supposed to cover screening tests, right? Yet now my mammograms are more expensive than they ever been. Colonoscopies have been more expensive. Why? Well, because when you read the fine line, the screening is the bare bones, and that's not the average test that a lot of us get. And so if you're thinking, well, it's going to cover my medications, it's going to cover this, you got to be able to read it and understand it. And that's something that I do think the Affordable Care Act did try to ensure that any, shall we say, a literature from these healthcare plans was at least a 5th grade level, reading level. But I've seen the contracts of these plans. I've seen it's ridiculous. I mean, I have greater than 5th grade reading level, and even for me, I fatigue after 2 or 3 paragraphs. But also, if they cover your doctors, if you have a doctor that you like, I understand Obama promised that you could keep your doctor. Most of us didn't. Most of our doctors, no, we weren't able to keep it. But if you have a medical provider and they're on that insurance, and you have a conversation with them saying, look, are you going to be still on this insurance? Or, I want to be able to work with you still. To me, that's where I make my choice. My insurance companies have changed, the ones I've used for personal health insurance, almost every year. But the reason why is because I check to see if my my provider is going to be on it. And so that would be, important. The other thing too is how is their customer service? If you have a claim that's not getting paid or getting rejected, and it's being appealed by your medical provider, are they working with you on that? Now, my husband had an insurance a little while back where they wouldn't cover for his diabetes, the Ozempic. And then they said, when they finally covered it after a year, if your blood sugars finally come into control, they're going to not cover the medicine. And so he's like, so now I have to get sick again and I have to go up and down. If the medicine's controlling me, why won't you continue it? And so, to me, that's not a very good insurance company. So these are the types of things. So I wish I could say, is United the best? Is Blue Cross the best? I had an opinion when I was a provider and they were paying me, but when I had issues with prior authorizations and all that, even if they were paying me well, I couldn't recommend those insurance companies to the patients because nothing the patient wanted would get approved. So, these are things that we got to take into account. And I just foresee fewer and fewer choices with healthcare. Unless the consumer has the buying power. If the consumer doesn't have the power and these companies just continue to get subsidies for whatever rates they're doing, they're all going to work together and they're all going to make more money. And you and I are going to be screwed. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.